So our next poem is Please by Komunyakaa, and we're just going to go through each stanza instead of reading it first. So it starts out with "Forgive me, soldier," and "Forgive my right hand." First off, "forgive" is repeated, so that kind of like, I thought of that as right after the title being "Please." It's kind of like someone like asking for the forgiveness, and that makes it like very strong.
Yeah, it brings about the whole I need you to forgive me. Like, I know I made a mistake. It's the command, and there was an understood you as the subject, which is, it just directly is talking to the soldier.
And also it's command. And I also thought of "Forgive my right hand." I thought that could possibly relate to like the right hand of God, because it's interesting that he said right hand. But as we go on, we'll learn about kind of what he means about right hand. And then next, "For pointing you to the flawless tree line now." And the tree line is important in this poem because that's in the Vietnam War. The tree lines were like what kind of protected like airplanes coming in and where they'd shoot from and stuff.
It was a big defense mechanism.
Yeah, exactly.
And then later on they'll bring back the tree line to how it relates.
And he described the tree line as flawless, and the word flawless kind of has a positive connotation. Like, I thought of it as something that's like perfect or beautiful, and he's describing this tree line in a war that he fought in as flawless. That was like very interesting.
And then it goes to talk about there was so much blood sky at daybreak in Play Coup, but I won't say those infernal guns blinded me on that hill. We both took that as the blood sky at daybreak. You know, when you wake up and like the sun is rising, it's like red, it's really pretty. But in the context of this poem, it's most likely not peaceful, calm, like you would think of as sunrise. It's more probably blood from like a battle before or something.
Yeah, like literally the blood from the battle is what he's saying, blood sky. And then we kind of thought about what those infernal guns means, and so that's kind of what led me to thinking, both of us to thinking, that the blood sky was actual blood, because then he says blinded beyond that hill, so like what he saw there like scarred him, like he just that was like
he can't even talk about it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much. And then there was a reference to Play Coup, which was, it's a city in Vietnam, which is actually where the 1962 attack on Camp Holloway was. So I thought that was interesting that that's the scene, like this, he's bringing back, this is when this happened, was during the attack on Camp Holloway.
And then the next stanza is pretty important. "Mistakes piled up, men like clouds push to the dark side. Sometimes I try to retrace them running." And like the mistakes that he made ended up killing men. So that's that kind of reveals like what the thing that's scarring him is. And so they are pushed to the dark side. They fell to the enemy. They were dead.
And he also is also comparing the dead men that died to clouds it really struck with me. It was like, you think of clouds and you think it's like, you know, peaceful, like, but they're really big. And then when then you bring that back to the piled up men, that must be a lot of men died to like make kind of look like a cloud is what he compared it to. So to show the significance of how many people died in this.
And he keeps going over the mistakes that he made, like thinking about them and realizing he was wrong, but he can't change them. So then it goes on running. That ends that stanza, and it continues this stanza, which was an interesting visual prosody. "Fingers down the map, telling less than a woman's body. We followed the grid coordinates in some battalion commander's mind. If I could make my mouth unsay those orders." And then there's a comma, so we'll stop there. Remember that part?
Yeah.
So first off, like, the map was confusing. It was kind of hard to read. And that was a metaphor, telling less than a woman's body, which was an interesting, like, a metaphor.
And then they tried to follow the grid coordinates. They were trying to be clear about what they were, you know, where they were going, what they were doing. But then it goes back to in some battalion commander's mind, which is some kind of insinuates that it's vague, doesn't really matter. It doesn't.
It's just like, oh, whatever, some battalion's commander's mind. And so that kind of shows his feelings towards the people that he was fighting with, or at least the commanders. like they weren't even those weren't the people who were important to him. So if I can make my mouth unsay those orders, which is, you know, talking about the mistakes that he made, if he could kind of redo them, I'd holler, don't move a muscle, stay put, keep your effing head down, soldier. So this part kind of shows like how strongly he feels about all of this. If he could go back, he would kind of say anything to protect his soldiers, like from the enemy, especially using like a graphic word to describe what the soldiers should do. It just shows his like emotion in the poem.
You could take the graphic word like in two different ways. You could take it as to show the importance that his directions, because sometimes people use it to show like necessity or like when they need something done. So it could be taken that way, but then someone might also take it ironically, because they might sometimes people use the word like vulgarly or like in anger or in haste,
or like yelling at someone, but actually like feeling some sort of like anger or like very strongly towards whatever they're doing.
But he was actually doing it to be the most protective he could be, so that was ironic.
And then it starts with ambush, gun smoke, and those are two short sentences. So
it helps picture what the feeling the author felt like when once the soldiers were moving. It just what the author was seeing when this went down.
And then last night while making love, I cried out, hit the dirt. And this just kind of shows how the war is like always on his mind, even in daily life. This is ingrained all the time. Even while like with a woman, he's yelling this, like hit the dirt, thinking about the war. It never ends. It's like it's always on his mind.
Yeah, it's affected his daily life 100%. I've tried to swallow my tongue. You were a greenhorn, so fearless, even foolish. And when I said go, I looked up the word greenhorn. I didn't know what that meant. And greenhorn is like you're inexperienced. You don't really know much about this event. But then it says so fearless, even foolish. The fearless could be talking about. It's representing like the innocence of the unknown. You don't really know what you're going to expect, and so you're brave because you don't think what's going to happen is as bad as it actually is. But then he calls him foolish, which is ironic because he's foolish for listening to his leader's directions, which is what he was trained to do.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like he was being too fearless. Like too much of anything can be a bad thing, and that's what happened here. So yeah, and then going back to I tried to swallow my tongue. That's just, you know, trying not to say something, but he has to because like he feels that strongly about everything. And then lastly, Henry, you went dancing on a red string of bullets from that tree line as it moved from a low cloud. And so this is like the strongest point of the poem. And the visual prosody is pretty strong here also, because it starts off, Henry went dancing on a red string, which that was, you know, at first, you see that as like happy, like it's not, Henry's dancing on a red string, and then you see the next line of bullets, the prepositional phrase of bullets, it's just like, wow, that's that's what happened, that's what he's revealing, that's what he remembers the most.
And so we took that as bringing the whole stanza together. Henry was running to where like his leader gave him the instructions, and the enemy was up in the trees hiding. The clouds and the trees covered him, and the enemy shot down at the red string, or the line of bullets shooting at him that killed him.
And that's when the tree line and the clouds come back in again. So those were like the important images in the poem. So those were very important to like the meaning and what he felt when writing it, being in the war.